Good evening, everyone. We're going to try and get started. Huge apology for the delay on our part. It's his fault.
My fault.
That's right. But
I'm the black hat today.
so if everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to do the roll call now. Mr. Phil Nemesak.
Present.
Jim Bonanno is present. Mr. Anthony Giacobbe.
Present.
Mark Cunningham will not be here, and Louis Campagna has also told us he won't be able to attend this evening. Let's see. The first thing is we have one application from previous meetings that's been adjourned for the meeting, and it is application 21-17, 15 Tuckahoe Avenue subdivision, and that's adjourned to the March 23rd, 2023 meeting, and we won't be doing that tonight. The one applications we are going to be talking about are the Beach Street subdivision, 23-02, 22-40, 80 Webster Road, 22-42, 883 California Road, and 22-38, 54 Stratford Road. Let's see. So I imagine most of you are here to listen to what's going on with the Beach Street subdivision. Thank you for coming. It's a lot of information that we've all seen. We've had positive information that's presented to the board. We all haven't had a chance to start looking through it yet. I'm sure you guys probably have seen it. It's going to be here a few times. So this is the first meeting we're going to start understanding what it is. We're going to have, first thing we're going to have is a presentation from the consultant, and he's going to present the application to us. We're all going to listen to that. And then we have consultants. The way it works is they have their consultants, they have a consultant, and they have a civil consultant. We have two. The board has their own consultants that we listen to. They're our experts, so we have a traffic expert and a engineering expert. They're going to tell us their opinions right now on the application. The board's going to get an opportunity to question everyone, ask our questions. First line of what's going on, what's doing, what our concerns are. We'll speak with our consultants. After that, we're going to open a public hearing, and you folks will have a chance to come up and address the board, tell us your concerns. I know there's I've seen a lot of correspondence. Everything you send to me, send to Margaret, comes to us, we see it, so it doesn't get put away, and we look at each other and say, wow, let's discuss this. So there's nothing that comes to Margaret that we don't hear about and consider. Tonight the idea is we're not going to be able to answer all your questions right now. The way we are going to do it is Margaret's a great note keeper, and we all take notes, and everything that's asked and all the questions that we have, if we can't give an answer, we're going to get back to it. So we'll keep track of 100 questions if we have to, but we'll get your answers, and they'll be the best answers we can give. And we have our consultants that we usually defer to their expertise on the issues, because I'm not a traffic consultant, I'm another type of engineer, so we usually defer to them. So that's the format. And then after that, the public hearing is going to remain open for a while, and the applicants could come back, and you could come back and continue, ask more questions. If you don't have satisfactory answers, do it again. And the idea is we're going to keep doing that until we as a board feel that we understand the impact of the project. Upon that, if we feel that we know what's going on, what we do then is we refer it to the zoning board, and they look at the zoning variances, thank you, the zoning variances. So they opine on that, we don't touch that, and then it comes back to us and we continue until we know what's going on the site. So it's a process, it's not all tonight. So that being said, I guess we're going to start, yeah. We're going to start with one other thing. When we open the public hearing, we understand everyone has comments, and we do want to hear them. I just asked for the concerning brevity, if they're the same comments that the person before you said, unless you're try to limit them to new and unique comments, just so we get out of here, because there's also applicants after you. And we decided, Margaret made I think it was a good decision to have this application first, so you guys don't have to sit through other applications, but the other consultants, I guess that's you guys, are going to have to wait till we get through this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could just add that there is one additional potential layer of review with the Architectural Review Board, should we get far enough that we're actually talking about the aesthetics of any development.
Well, and only to correct you, that's not part of the subdivision approval. That's when
Oh,
they
yeah,
come back
that-
for individual
ultimately, yes,
houses.
that's
Yes,
correct,
okay,
that's correct,
okay,
thank
just to
you.
make that
Yeah,
clear.
mhm.
Yeah.
So there are layers and layers
Yes,
here.
yes.
That's the
Right.
point.
We're not going to
Yeah.
make any, we're not going to vote on anything tonight, we're not going to make any decisions tonight, we're just going to start hearing what this is all about, same as you are. So then, with that being said, for some brevity, I'll stop talking and let the applicant put up their presentation for the project. So, the first application is 23-02, as we know, 203 Beach Street subdivision. You're
Good
up.
evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the public, my name is David Smith. I'm a principal with Planning and Development Advisors. We're land use planning and real estate development consultants. I'm here tonight on behalf of Bashkim, and I'm going to mess up his last name, Kukoy. Close enough, close enough. For the redevelopment of 203 Beach Street and representing 4 Vlazen LLC. Joining me tonight is Brian Dempsey from DTS Provident, our traffic engineer, and Mr. Dan Collins, who is with Hudson Engineering, who prepared the plans, the majority of the plans in the stormwater management. And I'll have both Mr. Dempsey and Mr. Collins provide some of the presentation as we get further along. If I could ask the man behind the curtain, there we go, very good, thank you. So, our first slide, so project location. The site's approximately 1.8 acres. It's located between Highland Avenue here to the north and Beach Street here to the south. And we've included the site location in black. There has been some commentary relative to the different districts with respect to the school district. And we would note, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, that we've been working actively with your building and planning director on just making sure that we have the correct addresses for notification, and that took us a while just because the county GIS system isn't always as accurate as we would like. And there was a comment about the school district boundary, and we've corrected that, and I'll get to that later on in the conversation as we move through the presentation. So the next slide illustrates the project site. We've overlaid a proposed subdivision, 8-lot subdivision over that. Again, Highland Avenue here to the north and Beach Street to the south. And I think one of the presentation pieces of when we get to it is just to illustrate how this is a proposed 8-lot subdivision, single-family homes in a single-family neighborhood. The portion of the property, you'll see this blue line right here. That is the zoning district. To the right is R6, to the left is R5. So the property is split between 2 different zoning districts, which affects some of the layout. We have the photographs that I'm going to present have been provided as part of the application package that you've received. So this just illustrates some of the existing conditions. The photograph here on the left, that's from Highland Avenue. There's an existing garage there that will be demolished. And again, most of the site is vacant, and it's basically green lawn area. And some more photographs of the existing site. And this is from Beach Street looking north. So as indicated, this is approximately, it's a 1.1 acre site. For reference, this is Beach Street. Highland Avenue is over to the left. North is to the left. As I mentioned, the property is split between the R6 district, which has a 6,000 square foot minimum lot size requirement, and R5, and the zoning district boundary is right here. So everything below is R5, everything above is R6. And the R6 has a 6,000 square foot minimum lot size, the R5 has a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size. For access, The Lot 1, located right here, has an direct access to Beach Street. Lots 7 and 8, over here to the left, have direct access to Highland Avenue. And the balance of the lots, 2 through 6 here, have access to a proposed cul-de-sac that would connect to Beach Street. There is a proposed non-building lot located right here, and that's being proposed for the use of stormwater management. So again, this is the zoning district boundary, and as we had mentioned earlier about the school district boundary, we have corrected the school district boundary, and that's located here in the blue line, so that this one lot, Lot 1, is located in the Tuckahoe School District, and the balance of the lots are located in the Eastchester School District. And as part of the application submission, we've included a school impact report. Depending on the bedroom count, and again, we haven't determined the exact number of bedrooms per unit, the house design, but based on between a 3 to a 5 bedroom house, you would generate anywhere from between 4 to 8 public school age children. And based on the enrollments of both districts, there would be less than 1% increase in enrollment for either district, and which, in our opinion, is an imperceptible increase in school enrollment. So for me, as a land use planner, one of the things that I wanted to do was look at how this particular residential community how it relates to the balance of its neighborhood and its surroundings. And so part of what we looked at, and this is based on the Westchester County GIS, we looked at, and there are a number of cul-de-sacs within proximity to this proposed project. And I think there's probably close to a dozen. And I'll just quickly list them. Barber Place has 10 lots, D'Ambrosio Way, 6 lots, Pine Circle, 6 lots, Tara Way, 7 lots, Crawford Drive, 10 lots, Dean Place, 6 lots, Duluth Place, 4 lots, Sage Place, 6 lots, Brothers Circle, 11 lots, Darcy Lane, 17 lots, Hickory Hill Road, 14 lots, Santa Monica Drive, 5 lots, Berkeley Circle, 4 lots. And if I've missed somebody's cul-de-sac, my apologies, but this is just to illustrate that from a land use planning standpoint, what's being proposed, at least in my opinion as a land use planner, is consistent with what the town has in the surrounding neighborhoods. It's single-family homes, adjacent to single-family homes off of a cul-de-sac, providing access. So as part of the application process, we had an opportunity to meet with the Director of Building and Planning to review the application. And there are several, 3 variances, or at least 2 variances and an interpretation as part of the proposed project. The first is a variance for a minimum offset distance between intersections located here, between Sawanoy Boulevard and the proposed cul-de-sac. I believe your requirement is 150 feet. We're not quite at that. I forget the exact amount. Dan, do you remember? It's 110 feet. But again, if we go back to look at the land use pattern, there are other comparable cul-de-sac designs or layouts which have a separation which is less than what is required in the code. The second variance is for a curb cut radius at this location. And then the interpretation component really relates to lot number 4, which is here, just illustrating it here. And it's part of the discussion that we've had with the Director of Building and Planning is, how do you determine the rear lot, and how do you determine the kind of the setbacks? So the next graphic illustrates, and this is the point in question here, is that the definition of rear lot line in the town code, the lot line generally opposite the front lot line. If the rear lot line is less than 10 feet in length, or if the lot comes to a point at the rear lot line shall be deemed to be a line parallel to the front lot line, not less than 10 feet long, lying wholly within the lot and farthest from the front lot line. So in our review, we consider this to be the front yard. And just from a reading of the code, the lot comes to a point at the back. And so what we've done is we've taken a distance of 25 feet from that point and created a rear lot line. So that's one of the issues I think that is ongoing in our continuing discussion with the Director of Building and Planning and with your board as to how that line gets interpreted. I would note that, again, looking at the Westchester County GIS and looking at other cul-de-sacs in the neighborhood that I have referenced previously, that there are other lots configurations that are similar to the one that we had just referenced, lot number 4. And it would be my concern as a land use planner that, you know, there may be unintended consequences of that interpretation, so that potentially there may be other lots that may be previously approved that all of a sudden become non-conforming lots. And so, again, we've just provided a quick kind of eyeball survey of different lots within the immediate vicinity that may have the same type of condition. And so that was one of the issues that I think that we need to have an ongoing discussion with your board and with the Director of Building and Planning. So at this point, what I would like to do is have Mr. Dempsey come up and just go walk through the traffic methodology that he used to prepare and analyze impacts on traffic. And then after that, I'll have Mr. Collins come up and just walk through kind of a summary of the stormwater management techniques that are being proposed as part of the project. It's right there. So, you want? Okay.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, Brian Dempsey. I'm a licensed professional engineer from the firm DTS Provident Design Engineering. I'm also a certified professional traffic operations engineer and a road safety professional, and I'm a member of the County Traffic Safety Board. As Dave mentioned, we prepared a traffic study that has been submitted to the town. To prepare that study, we first had discussions with the town's planning director, and then the traffic study was scoped by the town's traffic consultant. So we followed that scope in preparation of the traffic study. We performed traffic counts. We also counted buses, we counted pedestrians, as well as vehicles. We then projected that traffic out 3 years at a conservative growth rate of 2% per year to 2025. And then we determined how much traffic the project would generate. It's estimated based upon the Institute of Transportation Engineers, which is the methodology required by the town and by the state to use the trip generation. Would have about 3 trips coming into the site in the morning peak hour and 10 trips leaving. And then in the evening or late afternoon, 7 trips coming in, 3 trips leaving during the peak PM hour. And to be conservative, we had all the trips coming in and out of the one driveway for analysis purposes, just to be conservative. We then performed capacity analysis. We showed that good level of service would be maintained. Right now, the intersection of Beach and Siwanoy is at an A, level service A, would say a level service A. The intersection of Beach with Highland is currently a level service B, and it would remain at that level of service. And that level of service, since they're unsignalized intersections, would be the left turn movement coming off of Beach onto Highland. So those were the levels of service for there. So again, we would maintain good levels of service. We were also asked to look at site distance. Each of the driveways will have proper site distance and meet the required site distances. There is some vegetation in the right-of-way that will need to be cleared at the site to provide the proper site distance, but also proper site distances will be met. We were also asked to look at crash history. There's been minimal crashes over the, we obtained data for 2019 through 2022. There was one incident on Beach, car backing out of their driveway hit a parked car, and there was one incident on Highland in the area at Caldwell where the car did not stop at the stop sign and hit a vehicle exiting out of Caldwell. So there was minimal accidents in the area. Also, in terms of parking, there will be sufficient parking. It meets the town code. So there'll be at least 2 parking spaces per each unit. So the town code is met. Our study, as I said, was then reviewed by the town's traffic consultant. He had a couple minor comments. We clarified that, resubmitted the traffic study. We haven't had a final letter yet, but in general, he was in agreement with the findings of our traffic study.
Great, thank you. We're going to finish with the other consultant, then we'll ask questions. So, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, the last person that will be speaking is Dan Collins from Hudson Engineering. I put up on the screen, this is the stormwater management plan. I'm going to ask Dan to quickly just walk through kind of the basics, how stormwater management is going to be handled for this particular application.
Good evening, members of the board. Dan Collins from Hudson Engineering, design engineers for the project. So in the existing conditions, essentially the entire property, as you can see, basically flows overland in an easterly direction, where it eventually hits Highland and flows into the existing municipal infrastructure. There's a small area to the front of the site where the existing building was demolished that does still continue, that does flow into Beach Street right now. With that being said, since this project is obviously disturbing over an acre, we are required to meet New York State DEC requirements for stormwater design. It means we have to treat the water quality volume, the runoff reduction volume, every storm up to the 110, 25, and the 100-year, which is 9 inches over 24-hour storm event. This is a requirement by the state. Obviously, it would need to be reviewed it gets reviewed by the town's consulting engineer. Before I go forward, we did go through multiple scenarios with the town engineer before we got to this point. So this is where we ended up. And it should also be noted that the impervious area on each lot with the buildings and the patios has been maxed out. Not that they would actually be maxed out in the proposed design, but to be conservative to show that we can provide the required stormwater mitigation for each lot if they are built to the extreme, to their maximum extent possible. So with that being said, essentially the runoff generated from the roadway and then the rear yard of, I believe it's 195 Beach Street and then 100B Highland flows over land into the proposed cul-de-sac. This gets captured and conveyed to a new attenuation gallery. This was cited based on our discussions with the town because this lot was a non-building lot. It keeps it out of the way and it allows space for the other properties, to use their yards. What this system does, it actually has been sized to control and reduce the flows from the site, from the tributary area, to be less than that currently flows off the property now. Those controlled flows are then conveyed to what we call an upflow filter. It's a cartridge filter, water quality unit. That's been sized to treat the calculated water quality volume from the site. Then the treated flows and controlled flows are to be conveyed down to 2 new catch basins located in Highland before it cuts across and discharges to the existing pipe located in the opposite side of Highland Avenue. Essentially, we're taking everything that was going to Highland, that was going across the Highland over land, and now we're bringing it directly to the piping in the street. For each individual residence, we did do perks and deep tests to find out where the best soils were on site and how deep we had to go to get to ledge rock and groundwater. Using that information, we were able to provide infiltration systems, dry wells, located in the front and rear yards of each lot. All these dry wells for each of the properties are sized for the 100-year storm event, with no overflows at that point. Everything's going to be infiltrated into the ground. This essentially takes all the impervious areas in this that you could see in these on the lots and puts it into the ground and prevents it, now takes it away from the overland flow into the properties, on the adjacent properties. With all said and done and everything's combined, we're actually able to reduce the volume, the flows from the site, tributary to Highland Avenue. There is the small amount that does still go out to Beach Street. We did provide a swell to swell it around so that we bypass the flows from the front yard of 195 Beach. That'll be conveyed around to Beach Street. Because we're actually reducing that area that's going out to Beach, we actually reduce the flows at that point as well. So that's basically generally summarizes everything up in regards to the stormwater.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes our presentation. At this point, I think based on your direction, we're here to listen. We may or may not have a response for a comment that comes up. We would reserve the right to be able to listen and then respond in writing to all the comments that come in, the substantive comments relative to this application. We appreciate your time in listening to the presentation. Thank you.
Great, we'd like to make comments ourselves from the board, and then we'll move to the public, so.
Do you want to see if Joe or Phil had any comments?
Yeah, I do,
Okay.
but can we ask a few questions first?
Okay, sure.
Just want to, can you, just in general, I've looked at the plans and I understand the subdivision and what the lots are, but can you just dwell a little bit on that and show us the subdivision, where the lots are, where the 8 anticipated lots are going to be, just for the viewing public and the people here?
The overall layout?
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you define them, or they're labeled there, the different lots, right?
So is that the graphic?
Yeah, you
you're-
referred to like lot 1, lot 8, whatever, there were 8 lots.
Yes.
Larger one is better. There you go, that's the best one.
Okay, that's the graphic you're looking for?
It is. Can you
Okay.
zoom a little bit?
So-
Who zooms? Hold on.
Zoom in,
Is it,
yes.
am I getting old, or I cannot see?
Yeah, it's tough.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, if you, that's a good size, but maybe you could do an overview of the whole, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, start and then go pan left.
How's
when you're
that?
ready. That's perfect, thank you.
Okay. So this is proposed lot number 1. Yeah, let me just,
The one on Beach, right?
the one on Beach, correct. Hold on. There we go.
Maybe you could explain what the shading means or something, for, because most people don't
The
understand.
shading, yes, thank you. The shading is Dan, remind me, it's there's a technical.
Effective square. So there's 2 things shown on that. The dashed line, and those drawings are a little bit confusing. It might be nice to have a subdivision map that doesn't include anything but the lot lines and the lot numbers.
Of course.
But a dashed line is showing, that's not hatched, is showing the required building setbacks. That's a little bit hard to pick up on.
Right.
The
Right.
hatched squares is what's called the effective square. That's sort of an imaginary square that has to fit within the lot
Right.
to ensure that the lots kind of keeps a regular shape.
Right.
But those 2 things together do make the lots look a little confusing.
Right, right. So, why don't you keep going through the lots, that's 1.
Sure. So that was lot 1. Unfortunately, the laser pointer that doesn't work on the blow-up, but I will shift over. So the next lot is proposed lot number 2. And then you have 3, and then the one in the corner, that's lot number 4. That's the one where we're discussing how to interpret the rear lot. You then have lots 5 and 6, which are at the end of the cul-de-sac. And then at the other end, you've got lots 7 and 8, which front on Highland Avenue.
And which is 7 and which is 8? Is the
7
top
is,
one?
7 is the
Eastern
lot
one?
on the lower portion, and lot 8 is above that.
So 7 is behind 6.
That is correct. Right. And 8 is behind lot number 5.
So can you just define what effective square means for most of us? Because I barely know.
That might be me, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, please,
Yeah,
yes.
So, I don't know other communities that really have this. So, let's say in an R5 zone, you're required to have a minimum 50 by 100 square foot lot. You're also required to be able to fit in an imaginary square that's 50 by 100 feet, and a portion of that square has to be within the front yard setback. And so I think the purpose for it is to ensure that you have a somewhat regularly shaped lot. So for example, if you had a reverse pie-shaped lot, you wouldn't be able to fit the effective square. So it just is this hypothetical square that is required to be placed in the lot to ensure that it's somewhat uniform in its size. And so applicants always illustrate that on the plans for zoning compliance purposes.
Right.
But it otherwise serves no purpose, so it would be nice to have a plan that doesn't illustrate that,
It
even though
doesn't-
most applicants do that.
It doesn't represent a residence, is my point.
Not at all, no.
Okay. That's just what I wanted to get across. Okay, cool. Any other comments, guys?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. So just to finish up,
Oh, sure.
there is this non-building lot located just to the south of the cul-de-sac. That is proposed as part of the stormwater management system. So that's the
Sure.
other
That's
lot
your
that
tank.
is considered, yeah.
Does that have a reference number, or it's just the non-building lot?
No, it's a non-building lot. It'll be part of a homeowners association, if you will, or something that would be maintaining that as part of the overall stormwater management system.
Is that above ground or below ground? The tank?
Below ground.
Below ground.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So just to be clear, lots 1 through 1 through 6 will enter and exit on Beach Street. And lots 7 and 8 will be off Highland.
That's
with
correct.
With driveways.
Right. So lots 7 and 8 have direct access, driveway access out to Highland. Lots, actually 2 through 6 will access the cul-de-sac. And then lot 1, all the way that's fronting on Beach Street, will have direct access out to Beach Street. So you have 5 lots, lots 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which will be accessing the cul-de-sac, the proposed cul-de-sac.
Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Was there previously a structure on Lot 1 that was torn down? Is that what I heard before?
Was a single-family home? It was a single-family home. And there was a single-family home located off of Highland Avenue as well that was associated with the garage that was in the pictures.
Yeah, the garage is still there, but
It was a two-family home.
turning back to the one on Beach Street, when was that residence or that building removed?
I want to say 7 years ago.
On Beach Street, it was removed in 2017.
Okay.
Okay.
And is that did that residence or that building bear the street address 203 Beach? Is that where it
Yes.
comes from? Yeah.
Any other questions, guys?
No, I think I'm good.
I did have a question for the traffic consultant, if you could hand over the speaker to him for a second. Thank you. So I tried to read your report, and then I realized that we have Mr. Greeley or Dr. Greeley who does it, so I took faith in that. But maybe you could just say a couple of things you said. It just caught my attention. That was a level of service. Did you say that?
Yes.
What does that mean?
So it's a traffic engineering term. In terms of each intersection, it's analyzed in terms of capacity, in terms of amount of vehicles turning, number of pedestrians, traffic control, so whether it's as a traffic signal or it's a stop sign. And then signalized intersections are given grades, basically A through F. And so the level of service, A would be the best, F would be worse, basically just similar to school. And so it was a level service A, which means it has minimal delay. And the other intersection was level service B at Beach and Highland, just with the left turns off of Beach onto Highland.
Right, so each design of a road, there's different aspects that are given a level of service, turning,
Yes.
line of sight, volume, all those things are ascribed a level of service? Is that
Yes.
cool?
And if you're bored one night, there's, all the definitions are in one of the appendices of the traffic study if you need to fall asleep.
That's like I said. That's for our consultant. So then, do you make an evaluation of the level of service on the traffic? Did,
Yeah, so it's a level service is of the operation of the intersection, how it's operating in terms of those different parameters. And level service A and B are both very good.
I think, did you say that it's currently, what is it currently?
It's currently a B. We're only adding a couple cars to the intersection, so it's not really
Yeah, that's what I'm
affecting,
getting at.
it's
And
not
there's really
affecting the intersection.
there was no change, right? Is that what you?
Correct.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought you said. I just wanted to, I was surprised I picked up on that. Okay, cool. Definition. Oh, yeah, and the only other thing is, the codes you use, whatever they are they updated every so often? Like, what year are the ones that you guys use to do all this science?
In terms of, for the trip generation, or?
All the data that you use to
It's
evaluate this?
updated, I'm on the IT Trip Generation Committee. We're on version 11. It's updated every 3 or 4 years, basically.
Okay, so it's
The
relatively,
capacity analyses are based upon federal highway standards, and they're updated, I guess, every 5 to 10 years.
are there dates on it?
But
Are there dates on it? Like, what year is the version you guys are using? I know what we use.
the IT Trip Gen was last updated a year ago.
Okay.
The parking was updated, it's just about to be re-updated, was updated about 3 years ago. The highway capacity manual, I want to say it was about 2017. It actually didn't give a date anymore. They give it a version 6, basically, is what it's called now, because it takes so long to get through all the approval processes.
Just one other curious question. I know everyone says that we're getting a 100-year flood every year, and, so obviously everyone's paying attention, and actually the water levels are rising. Is the traffic also increasing with time?
Well, we increased the traffic by 2% per year to be conservative, which is actually a high number for this area based
Okay.
upon.
So that's a real number that's used
Yeah,
frequently?
so
the 2%.
basically we grew existing traffic by 6% up to the year 2025.
Okay, cool, thank you. Okay, any other questions, guys?
No.
We'll just go straight to our guys then.
Yep.
I guess since we're talking about traffic, you're up.
Good evening, Philip Greeley from Colliers Engineering and Design, town's traffic consultant. So we reviewed Mr. Dempsey's report. It was prepared based on accepted standards. To answer your question about the date of the trip generation manual, it was the fall of 2021 was the latest published edition, the 11th edition. When he talks about the traffic generation, we look at 1 hour periods when we analyze traffic. So when the numbers that he was quoting, that's in the peak 1 hour period. So in the morning, you may have people leaving for work or school over a several hour period, 2 hours or sometimes more. So when he talks about peak generation, that's the highest 1 hour period that's analyzed. In terms of levels of service, service are based on delay. So if you're on a roadway like Route 22 at a signalized intersection, you may have longer delays, and the levels of service will be lower on the scale. As he said, they go from A to F. So, in an area like this, you would expect levels of service A's and B's based on the volumes that are in these on these roadways. We reviewed their report. Again, it followed standards, identifying existing traffic volumes. When he talks about the 2% per year that they use, that's increasing that existing to create a background, what we call no build. So you have something to compare to when you add in your site-generated traffic. So their procedures follow the standard requirements for a traffic study. Our main items that we wanted to see, he mentioned site distances. We would like to see on the actual plans those site distances so that we know that they satisfy exactly what, the travel speeds, et cetera. In terms of, there should be input, of course, from police and fire. We haven't seen anything yet on that. There are a couple little typos in the report, but nothing significant. In terms of they identified, both vehicular traffic and pedestrians, in the area. There are no sidewalks there, so people are walking, in the streets as typically in the neighborhood. And in terms of his analysis, you have the individual driveways on Highland for those lots 7 and 8, and then the cul-de-sac traffic. And I think in terms of Mr. Smith's presentation, there are other, examples of this in the surrounding area where you have these small cul-de-sacs with multiple homes on it. So it's, not atypical from that standpoint. They provided, the accident, the crash history, nothing significant there. Those are reportable accidents that are from the police department. So at this point, we've reviewed what's been submitted. There may be other comments from the public that the applicant will either respond to or, respond to in writing, and then we'll continue to review that. But in general, his study was prepared following the standards and a few cleanup items to be taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And all our comments are in our report dated January 17th, just for reference.
Thank you.
Mr. Tremelli? Mr. Tremelli is our engineering consultant.
Good evening, everyone. Joe Tremelli from Kellard Sessions Consulting, engineering consultant for the town. As was mentioned, we had several staff level meetings with the applicant and their engineers. We had seen a couple of iterations of this plan before it got here tonight. We had some communications back and forth on some suggested modifications, revisions, many of which they've addressed before coming here this evening. They've discussed the 3 variances that are, or at least 2 variances we know are required in a 3rd determination. I think just for clarity, I think the 1 variance was referred to a variance for a curb radius reduction. It's actually a variance for the required right-of-way line that they simply can't provide because they don't control the land that they would need to provide that radius. Just wanted to clarify that for the record. They did mention, due to the size of the project, in addition to review and approval by this board and the town, they're going to need a state stormwater permit due to the size of the disturbance for the project. They've prepared a stormwater pollution prevention plan as required by that design regulation. We've reviewed it. In general, I think they've done a good job from a stormwater standpoint. We do have some comments and suggestions related to the design. We did witness all the soil testing for the property. They did deep and soil percolation tests at every location where any infiltration system is proposed to verify presence of groundwater or bedrock. They did have adequate depth, I think, at all locations except for possibly lots 1 and 2. They might be a little, there might need to be a little adjustment to the system there to accommodate the groundwater levels at that location. But generally, as they mentioned, they have designed the system assuming maximum potential build-out of all the lots. So a conservative approach, all of the stormwater runoff that would be generated from any impervious surface on those lots would be collected and discharged to an infiltration system. And they've been sized to accommodate the runoff through the 100-year storm event. So in theory, there wouldn't be any runoff resulting from the impervious surfaces for those storm events. Now, there's surrounding landscape and lawn areas that would naturally run off to adjacent properties as it does today, but the bulk of the stormwater from these proposed lots would be collected and infiltrated on the lots themselves. The stormwater system for the cul-de-sac would be collected and treated and detained in an underground system that would ultimately discharge to the existing town storm system on Highland Avenue. Again, just some minor comments with regard to some of the numbers used in the calculations. I don't envision it altering the project all that much, if at all, but just some clarification that we'd like to see before we are fully satisfied with the stormwater design. With regard to approvals, in addition, again, to town approvals, the applicant will need to obtain Westchester County Health Department approval for the subdivision, as well as for the proposed sewer and water service, water main extensions to serve 5 of the 8 lots. I'm sorry, 6 of the 8 lots. Lots 1 through 6 are proposed to obtain water and sewer services from an extension of the existing main on Beach Street. So they're proposing extensions of the water main and sewer main into the cul-de-sac to serve those 6 lots. The sewer will be reviewed and approved by the health department. The water will be reviewed and approved by both the health department and Veolia Water. So they'll have those outside agencies to deal with as well. The water and sewer services for lots 7 and 8 on Highland will obtain their services directly from the existing mains on Highland Avenue. As Mr. Grilli already mentioned, we would recommend that obviously the fire department review this plan. They did provide a fire truck maneuvering plan for the cul-de-sac, but obviously the fire department should see that, make sure that it meets the standards of their equipment. Going back to the water, while I doubt there'd be any issue, the applicant should obtain any pressure and flow data from the highway department, just to make sure that there is adequate pressure to serve these units. It would be the 6 units off of the cul-de-sac. And similarly, it's not in the memo, but I believe we did discuss it offline, with regard to sanitary sewer for the homes that would be discharging to the main extension on Beach. We would just like to see a capacity analysis of the existing sanitary main to ensure that the added flow from these homes would not create any adverse effect to that main. Again, I doubt that it will, but we should have that for the record. We had some other minor comments, some, I think, cleanup items with some of the bulk zoning and the tables and whatnot, but generally speaking, I think those are the bigger kind of broad brush comments at this point. Unless you have any questions for me.
So you answered my question without me even asking it, and that was about the sanitary. You said that, so the sanitary is going to 2 different mains on both sides, or?
The lots 7 and 8 will discharge to the existing sanitary main on Highland Avenue. In order to construct the cul-de-sac and serve those lots on the cul-de-sac, they need to extend the existing mains on Beach Street. So they'll be bringing a new water main and a new sewer main into the cul-de-sac. They're proposing a hydrant at the end of the cul-de-sac. Again, fire department will need to weigh in on where exactly they want that, but they are proposing 2 new mains to serve the cul-de-sac, the homes on the cul-de-sac.
Are the existing mains old, or are they in good condition? I know you said we're going to check capacity. Are they able to?
I'm sure I don't know the age of them. I'm sure they're fairly old. I don't know of any issues in speaking with the highway department that are evident right now. I could certainly have another conversation with him. And it's not uncommon for projects like this to have the applicant maybe televise this section of the existing main that they're connecting to. Maybe from the, their point of connection, go to the upstream and downstream manholes and at least televise that section to make sure that it's in good condition.
There's no infiltration or anything like that?
Right.
I think you taught us well on other projects. I'm bringing it up.
I'm waiting for you to say aye and aye.
Okay, that was my only other questions.
Yeah, Joe, I don't know if you're the person to speak to this, but we heard one of the variances that's required here is, concerns the distance between center lines of offset of intersecting streets.
Right.
And 150 feet is required, and we heard that this was only going to be 110, but I think our numbers have said, I've seen 130 before.
Yeah, so that's one thing we just need to clarify, but the
Yeah.
applicant said 110, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was dimensioned on the plan that we reviewed. We just
Yeah,
scaled
okay.
it. So it was, I thought it was approximately 130 feet. Either way, it was less than the 150, so we'll need that number.
Correct, yeah,
you know,
but the degree
firm
of the
before.
variance required is certainly something.
Well, I think it would be the building department that determines the degree of the variance, but that was actually a question I wanted to ask Mr. Greeley, Dr. Greeley, because our zoning law requires the 150-foot separation, central line to central line, but I'm not sure why. Is there a concern with regard to that? Is that okay? Since you brought it up.
Yes.
So the 150-foot distance is not untypical, and it's based on really a situation where you have two intersecting streets, and the idea behind it is because of the volume being generated, okay? So in a case where you have a short cul-de-sac, that offset distance is typically less critical because you don't have conflicting left-turning movements occurring of significance. Whereas if you had two major, local roads that are offset by less than 150 feet, and you have people making left turns onto either street, there could be a conflict. So in this case, the approximately, and usually you measure center line to center line. So that may be some of the variance in the distance, but it should be demonstrated on the plan. I think in this case, we're talking about a cul-de-sac, with the 5 lots, or actually 4 lots that are coming off the cul-de-sac, and then you have the side driveway. So it's usually driven by the amount of turning movements, the criticalness of that offset. And I think to give you an idea, you could look at some of the other cul-de-sacs that Mr. Smith talked about. So up on Tuckahoe Avenue, I think there's one that may be only like 60 or 70 feet apart, just as something to look at.
Okay, so, and I do think there's 5 coming off this cul-de-sac.
Yep.
There are 5, yes.
But,
2, 3.
but, so what you're telling us is that this requirement really is driven by traffic safety?
Yes,
Okay. Sorry to have asked you that question then, Joe.
it's fine.
Is the variance, who determines that? I know we're going to the zoning board to do it, but are they really qualified to make this, other than the fact that?
Yeah, and the highway, usually the highway superintendent would look at it also. The considerations are usually site distances,
Right.
the volumes involved, which these are low volumes for this cul-de-sac, and if you had a case where the roadway was not a tangent section of roadway, which is what we pretty much have here, it's a standard, it's not a curved section, so it really ties into those 3 categories.
Good.
Alignment, site distances, and number of turning movements or volume that would be generated.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were we done, Mr. Tramelli? I think we were, right?
So,
Cool. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be seeing a lot of you. Great. If we don't have any more questions, I think I'm going to open the public hearing.
Prudent.
Brilliant, yes, so, sorry to keep, oh,
No, I think you're fine.
good. So I think at this point, as I said previously, we're going to open the public hearing. So please, when you come up, just raise your hand and we'll get through everyone one at a time. When you come up, please just state your name and address clearly for the record. So we could write it down and so our stenographer could also get it right. So if you have a complicated last name, take a stab at it because Dina, our stenographer, isn't going to be able to do it, please. And as I said, if you would, just for brevity, if you have comments that are similar to the person before you, just somehow keep your comments a little bit shorter. So I'm making a motion to open the public hearing on this application, 23-02, 203 Beach Street subdivision.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who's first? Please. Sure.
You have to come up to the mic. Sir? Yes.
This gentleman's been recognized, so.
Yeah, my name is Chris Suriano. I live on Rose Avenue, 98 Rose Avenue. Is there any guest parking allowed on this site? Or is it just residential parking?
I would have to ask.
Are they making any allowances for guest parking?
Yeah, I heard you.
Do you want me to answer?
You know, I imagine
Well,
not.
yeah, it's it's going to be like any other single-family home in the town of Eastchester where you're required to have a minimum of 2 designated parking spots on the lot.
For residents, like, well, that's
Well,
accommodates the
it
residents.
doesn't, the zoning law doesn't specify exactly who parks there. You're just required to have 2 designated parking spaces. So I'm not sure whether they could do an analysis. Some of the driveways may be able to accommodate more vehicles. There's no requirement for that, and it would depend on the length of the driveways, et cetera. So if that's something that the board wanted to have just an analysis of how many cars would be able to park on each lot, that's something they could ask
What about
for.
the exit road going out to Beach Street? Is there parking along that road allowed?
The-
That's okay. I don't think we know the answer to that. That's something that I think the fire department and the police department would have to look at, and the highway department. So we will note
See,
that as a
well,
question.
another point, exiting out on Beach Street is a very, what is the variance involved with the Beach Street exit? Is there a variance for that?
That's the offset on the intersection that we were talking about. That's the offset on the intersection of 2 different roads. That's what we were talking
Well,
about.
it's really it's
The radius of the curve.
The radius, yeah.
It's not even the radius of a curve, it's where the 2 property lines intersect, where the side property line intersects with the front property line adjacent to the road. There's supposed to be a 12-foot radius, and that's so that it remains parallel to the roadway as a right-of-way. In one case, it's a 90-degree angle rather than a radius. It's a very minor variance. One thing that I was going to ask the applicant to do at the next meeting is to really focus in on that, because that's a kind of a complicated variance to understand without seeing it. But it's really...
Beach Street is a pretty narrow street, it's a very,
Yeah,
not
so-
private road, but it's very narrow.
We've read some of the
Oh,
submissions.
and also, when you come up,
Ma'am,
Yep.
if you want to come up, you can, but whoever wants to speak, you
Yeah.
have to come up to the mic because someone takes a transcript of this and they take it from the
She's your
microphone.
cheering section.
I think at the next meeting, the applicant can and there's even some more coordination and clarification with regard to the 3 variances.
Is that what you were referring to, the radius variance?
Well, I was just going to say, I think there needs to be some clarification with regard to the 3 variances, and then at the next meeting, we can really focus in on those 3 variances.
And look, we understand the concern that's been raised in emails from the public that this is a narrow street.
Right.
And I know we've had one member of the public indicate that his car has been sideswiped before.
Right, right.
And so that will all be under consideration.
oh, okay. Is the sewer in the street adequate the way it is to handle the waste, or they have to?
They're going to look into that, our consultants. They're going to report back on that.
Yep. The full testing hasn't been done. That's what Mr. Chimelli was indicating, that there are ways of determining the adequacy of the sewer line right now, and then to project what the additional load would be and whether
They have to
the system
determine
can
the
handle
capa-
that.
They have to determine the capacity of the sewer line in the street to accommodate all these homes.
Correct.
That has to be determined.
Yes, that's what they do.
Right.
Yep.
So, in other words, if it was not enough capacity, it would reduce the number of homes that they could build, or how does that work?
We're gonna-
First things first, let's figure out the capacity.
We're going to let our engineers figure it out. Any other questions? No, good. The gentleman in the middle, please. Yep, I think, yeah, you're welcome.
I'm Richard Slavanko from 200 Beach Street, which is the drop curb on the plan where they show. I think I can answer the question about, Mr. Siriano was asking about non-parking. I believe on the site plan, it does say proposed no parking signs throughout the whole cul-de-sac as well as on the road into the cul-de-sac. So the answer to the question would be no parking is provided if there were like a party. Correct. If they can park on his driveway, that's where they'd have to go, and we all know what that is. But we've talked a lot about center lines already, which I think is going to be a lot more, but it was stated that it's not on the drawing, and I thought it was convenient, but it can be figured it is exactly 103.3 feet, which is a 31% efficiency. And the way you figure that out is from the 10-foot to the 30-foot wide cul-de-sac with access road, and then it's a 107-foot lot. They do demarc from the end of their 107-foot lot, which is the 203 Beach Street, to the center line of Sidewinoy, which is 21.3 feet. So it is exactly 103.3 or 31.3% efficiency. And the reason I bring it up, I understand the conversation that happened at this point about maybe there's other properties such as Tuckahoe Ave that have a much shorter sight line, but in the case here where we have schools, two schools, one 2 blocks away, one 4 blocks away, there's an enormous amount of traffic, and it doesn't like stop signs. It's a lot of big vehicles, especially buses, and the time to react for somebody who didn't see it is nominal or nothing, because there's also on-street parking, because most of the houses in the area, mine included, have single-width driveways. There's not a lot of opportunities to park 2 cars if they're active driveways. So there's also always aspects with parked vehicle sight lines. And it was my car that's been sheared twice, the mirrors. I'd like to speak to the comps on the cul-de-sacs. I found it very interesting. As I saw it, I should have taken a picture, I didn't. But as I saw when they were showing comps, there was only one cul-de-sac in the Bronxville Manor development, or Bronxville Manor area. And I mention that because Bronxville Manor area is not typical of all the areas around there. It is a different character and there's different qualities to it. So it's not typical for that area. Further, how many of the comps have cul-de-sacs back to back? The Ambrosia coming off of Highland would almost be a short throw, even with a bad arm, to the other cul-de-sac, which would be proposed coming the other way. So there's actually, how many of the comps have cul-de-sacs back-to-back, literally almost touching one another? I don't think that's typical. Further, of the cul-de-sacs, how many of them are going into 22-foot wide streets with a deficiency in the center lines that has 2 schools dumping out of it, feeding in the morning, coming out of the afternoon, et cetera, with legally parked traffic any day of the week? This is not a typical situation. And also it was spoken about the standards of traffic studies. The first question I have is, what is the standard for sampling periods in regard to seasonality? Is it typical to be sampling during a holiday period where there's a major holiday and a lot of frequent vacations around Thanksgiving, which this was done? Well, it may be done with methodology that's acceptable. It was done in a sampling period, which is atypical, and to make projections of a normalized traffic during a holiday period is clearly flawed. And to make assumptions on that traffic study, I think, would be an error. That was my office view. If you looked at the video of the 2015 study from 200 Beach Street, which was showing motion-activated car flow, with, for example, in the morning period of the sample day of a given Monday in April, actually tax day, It had five different intervals of 5 cars within a minute, less than a minute. In one case, it was a large bus. Then there was other periods where we had 7 cars within 40 seconds. This is not, a normal neighborhood traffic pattern. And going back to all these schools, and they also cut through to get away from the nasty corner. People hide from the traffic lights on White Plains Road by cutting through the back. So it's another form of traffic comes through. That's why there's traffic all day long. It's not just school periods. And so the thing that you'll also note is that this is, many people walk these streets because it is a very normal community with lots of young children. Those streets are active. And I was speaking with neighbors today and said how the trepidation these kids go out on the street and the way they peek past the cars and so forth already. And now we're talking about adding a new dynamic to the traffic pattern. It's not so much there's so many more new cars. It's already a problem. If it came before the board today to build this beach road the way it is now with the traffic, nobody would agree with it. It's dangerous at best. And when I was doing I was mentioning to the neighbor, when I was doing the traffic study, my neighbor Drew, who's at 195, Mr. Clark, was just moving in, and his children, very young children, were riding on training wheels on their bike, and I saw it. I was remotely monitoring the recording session. I called my wife, said, "You've got to get out there right now." They don't know. This street is crazy. Get them off the road. And that was back then before any of these issues. So these are my points. I'm going to double check my notes because I don't think we get another chance. But I think in particular, you have to revisit the traffic study. You have to revisit the nature of cul-de-sacs in that development and abutting one another and all the other exceptions that this would represent. And I'll let someone else speak to the crazy flooding that goes on in this area, which I'm sure the 100-foot storm is like every third day. I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ma'am, you have to please come up to the microphone, ma'am. Please come up. No, you have to say it at the microphone, please.
Okay, all right.
Okay, gentleman behind. Thank you.
Just come around the front.
J. Rare, 6 Barber Place. My concerns are the 100-year storm, which seems to be almost every rain these days. I'm living on Barber Place since '96. Never had water until 2-3 years ago when they put up the 5, 6 houses on Highland, a little further up from me. The flow of water that comes down between 6 Barber Place, between 6 and 8. It's like waterfalls. My retaining wall has come down one of the storms about 5 years ago. We're covering up so much ground with cement, and you're talking about putting in some underground wells in the front of the house. It's the downside. It doesn't flow. That water does not flow to Highland Avenue. That water flows down the hill to the reservoir, the old backup reservoir. And the volumes of water that come down these days is beyond anyone's thoughts. So you really have to look at where the water is going. It's not going into the drains that the builder's proposing, because it doesn't flow out to Highland Avenue. So, and even at my corner, the pavement is always eroding away, and the town highway department will tell you that it's flowing down from Highland Avenue, but it comes out of the street at Barber Place because they're constantly re-blacktopping it. So you have to consider the water flow.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Please.
Good evening. Hi, Rose Brescia, 205 Beach. So where I am, where we are, is right next to Lot 1, opening out onto Beach Street. So I did send a letter. I sent an email to Ms. Yulee, and that kind of summarizes most of my issues. A few things that were mentioned tonight. I just want to have, I have a few more questions. Again, back to the traffic study. I think, as we've heard before, the traffic study was done on the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday after Thanksgiving, when the temperature was in the 20s and 30s and 40 degrees. We have school kids, we have school buses, we have walkers, strollers, dog walkers, scooters. That would not have been picked up on those days at the times that this traffic study was done. So I think that really needs to have another look. There's sports at the schools, there's weekends activities, there's landscaper trucks. This is a neighborhood where the houses are 80 to 100 years old. I don't know how many times I have to have contractors over to fix things. So, you know, we're constantly having contractor trucks in and out, landscaper trucks in and out. There's parking, there's no parking restrictions on most of Beach and Siwanoy, so people are weaving in and out and in and out, and as was mentioned, the kids on the scooters and the bikes, they have a really hard time seeing the traffic coming through. So that's really a big concern. Let me rephrase that. There are some parking restrictions. I think the report said that there were none. There is a parking restriction on the corner of Rose and Beach. We can't park around that corner. There's no parking on the dead-end side, on the south side of Beach. On the dead-end side, there's also a fire hydrant right on the corner of Beach and Siwanoy, so you can't park there either. So there's this constant juggling of where people can park. It's very unsafe right now, and as the gentleman here said, it's very unsafe as it is now, and then we're going to add another road that is a wider street opening onto a narrow street that is Beach Street. Now, Beach Street's only about 22 feet wide. So I'm concerned about the traffic study, and I really think that some of these issues need to be addressed. That really should be done between April and July, not in November. And different times. It did not pick up, the times of the traffic study did not pick up the school dismissal. School dismissal from the high school starts about 1:30, 1:40, and runs all the way through till about 3:30, and then again after school activities. There's constant activity there. So I think that needs to be addressed again. Again, those are the things that I feel that need to be looked at again. Again, we talked about stop signs. Nobody stops at the stop signs. There's 2 stop signs there. Nobody pays any attention. We've often had the school bus that comes down that road has to pull out into the intersection to stop the traffic both ways because people don't stop at the stop sign. They try to go around the school bus. So that's an issue. My second question is on the utilities. Again, I do have a question about the sanitary sewer. The system in this neighborhood is over 100 years old, right? This neighborhood was built in the 20s and the 30s. Can that system hold it? I'm downstream. I don't want to be downstream from a sewer system that fails, okay? The runoff going to Highland, there was a mention that the water goes into the attenuation gallery and then there's an overflow into Highland. Are we really thinking of putting more water into Highland? I don't know if that's a good idea either. We've been here 26 years. I know that was been redone several times. That whole sewer system has been redone several times since we've been there. And I don't know if anyone here is from the bottom end of Highland, but that's a big issue. Question on that hydrodynamic separator. Who maintains that? Does it silt up? What happens in 10, 15 years when all that stormwater has been coming through and you have this, the gallery and these cartridges? What happens? Who's responsible for maintaining it to make sure that that's actually flowing and attenuating? And what happens to that water when it starts getting filled up? And again, most of these issues I have sent in my email, so I'm not going to talk about I'm not going to go over them again. The school district thing is an issue, so I've sent another note, and it looks like that's been addressed. The other thing I wanted to say is we're not opposed to houses on this lot. This is a beautiful lot. You can't find this kind of property in Eastchester anymore. But do there have to be 8 houses here? That is my question. Why are we creating a situation that could go bad very easily? That variance on the difference with the center line and the offset of the street, that could be a big problem. I know in the traffic reports, it said there was only 2 accidents. I know of 3 on that corner. One of them we were involved in, one of them I witnessed, and the other one was with my neighbor. So I don't know where that information comes from, but there's a lot more going on in that corner than was shown. So my question is, this is I'm going to point to your screen here because it's right here. We're doing all of these machinations to get 8 houses, possibly 7 houses. 2 houses off Beach Street, 2 houses off Highland. Everyone has a nice big yard. Everyone's happy. I don't know why we're going through all of this to get all those houses there when you could just get 4 houses and have great backyards with a swimming pool, and I'd make friends with them. Okay, so that's my. I don't want to present myself as not wanting people to have houses. Okay, I want there to be. Right now, we have coyotes and deer. So I'd rather have human neighbors. But 4 houses seems like it's the right way to go with this without too much trouble. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to address one of the comments for those who are here tonight and for those who are watching at home. In terms of the number of houses, the board receives applications, building and planning receives applications from the applicants, and it is the position of the board to evaluate the applications and to take comments from the public and our experts and make those determinations. But these applications come in and the board has to address them as they come in. So I wanted to put that out there if people are watching at home and have that same question.
Yeah, we don't engage in a negotiation with the applicant, but certainly your comments have been made and they're public. They've been heard not only by everyone here, but everyone watching at home, and certainly by the applicant. And if the applicant wants to consider that, they're welcome to.
Any more comments?
Andrew Clark, 195 Beach Street. I have a request for the next meeting to get a better understanding of the first variance that's being asked for. That's the 12-foot variance, which would be directly attached to 195 Beach Street, which is obviously our property. I want to understand more about that. I want to understand what the lines are, where the town's land starts, where my land. I also want to understand what the driving factor behind that variance is. Is that related to the fact that they have to get the fire engine around the corner there? Is that why they're requesting this particular variance? So if I could get some more background behind that, I think that would be very helpful for the next meeting so that we understand that. Obviously, there's a significant concern around the impact on land value, particularly to myself. Having a slice of the property taken off is of great concern to us. I second some of the concerns around traffic and traffic volume. I have 2 young kids. They're out all the time, either walking or on bikes. It is hard enough from a visibility standpoint right now along Beach Street to see oncoming and traffic. So there are some significant visibility issues that need to be addressed there. Again, I'm not against development. I'm just concerned about the right sort of development for the area that is in line with the existing neighborhood. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other further comments, folks?
And as a reminder, this will not be your last opportunity to comment. It might be for tonight, but this is envisioned to be a lengthy application process.
No, I've been scribbling notes, Margaret's been scribbling notes. We take everything you're saying to heart. I feel for you. It seems like there's some issues that have to be addressed, so.
Yes, and by the way,
So
we did,
there-
Margaret did forward to us your email, which I've read already. Maybe I'll read it more carefully, too. But we, of course, get all of the input that anything that you send to Margaret will get to us.
Right,
The applicants and our consultants get them as well.
Yeah.
right. We work both sides. We have to deal with our consultants, we have to deal with the developers, and we have to understand the concerns of the community. And we do. And we're not going to stop till we have it all figured out, so. See you next meeting if you'd like, whenever it is. We'll come back next meeting, I guess. They're going to return, or we don't really know yet.
Well,
But yeah, so I think if there's no additional comments for this evening, you'll just continue the public hearing at the next meeting, which is March 23rd.
Right, and this applicant will be there.
I'm assuming so. If they're not ready, we can,
Okay,
If,
do,
sure. Well, let us finish saying what we're saying, then we'll
yeah,
get to you.
yes, I mean, I guess it depends on how quickly the applicant can put together something, but it will be carried on the agenda for March 23rd, so you can anticipate and will be on the agenda for March 23rd. If for some reason there's still outstanding issues and the applicant isn't ready, it'll be adjourned to the following meeting, which would be in April. But everyone should anticipate it's on the March agenda.
Yeah.
Look at the March agenda. If it's going to be adjourned, it'll be listed as adjourned.
Right,
And at that time, the next time it appears, obviously, you'll take more comments from the public.
right, and we'll address some of the concerns that were brought up tonight and bring more materials to continue the discussion.
Yep.
So, thank you, everyone. Were you going to say something? You're good?
Did you want to take the one more comment?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Ma'am, did you have one more comment, or?
ma'am, you have to come up to the microphone, please.
yeah.
If
Could you
just
state
say
your name?
and address?
Sylvia Soriano, and I'd like to know why more people haven't received the letter to come here, because many of my neighbors did not receive a letter, and it affects the whole area all the way to the school.
We were extremely careful to double-check this, because I will say that the applicant did a very thorough job with the first mailing. A couple of your neighbors notified me to say that they did not receive letters, and we discovered that the problem was actually with the Westchester County Tax Parcel Viewer that misidentified some of the addresses. And so we actually had the applicant do the entire process again. So even though it only negatively impacted, and by negatively impact, I mean approximately 5 residents within the 200-foot radius did not receive the letters initially, the applicant did it a second time. It was triple, quadruple checked by both the applicant and by
Your
Carol
department.
in my office, because we're paranoid about such
I think
things.
that everyone in Bronxville Manor should get a letter.
Well, the law requires that everyone within a 200-foot radius of the property receive a letter. The agenda is
And are we
also,
going to meet the owner, the person who is doing this, the builder?
the builder is here,
Well, he never addressed.
His
consultants are
consultant's
speaking.
address.
Yeah, he's not required to speak to us at this point. Yep.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Great, so the public hearing remains open, folks. If there's no other comments, the next meeting is, as Margaret said, in a month, and we're going to move on to the rest of the applications.
And
The
again,
additions- oh, wait.
because just for those of you, before you leave, the public hearing is open. At the next meeting, more comments are welcome. If you know of people that are outside of that 200-foot radius that you think want to weigh in on this, please let your neighbors know so that they can come in and have their comments put on the record as well.
Also, just, Jim, before you move on.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
you need to.
The lead
note-
agency?
No, well,
Yeah,
first,
I know.
note on the record that it's considered a major subdivision.
Right.
And that is simply because a new street is being proposed, so that's what classifies it as a major subdivision. And then you'll need to make the motion for seeker with regard to lead agency status.
Right.
Okay.
You're not missing anything, folks. This is just housekeeping. So this is a major subdivision. That's what it's classified because a new street is being proposed. And there's a motion I have to make about a secret determination. So I'm making a motion that the planning board serve as the lead agency for the coordinated review of application 23-02, 203 Beach Street subdivision for a proposed 8-lot subdivision. The proposed subdivision is an unlisted action under SECRA and is classified as a major subdivision under the zoning law of the town of Eastchester. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Cool. March 23rd, cool.
Okay.
March 23rd.
We're
next
done
one. See you
with
guys
your
then.
application for this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for the
Appreciate
presentation.
opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening. The next application is 22-40, 80 Webster Road. Good night.
Night.
It's all you.
Good evening. I'm Michael Mastrogiacomo, I'm an engineer for the project. What we're here for tonight is a single family residence located at the vacant lot of 80 Webster Road.
Take care, Mr. Rulli.
Be easier if I just come down here.
Sure.
So what we have, this is there was a 2-lot subdivision a few years ago that was approved. This house was built. My client now is looking to build a house for himself and his family. And what we have is again, a single-family residence with the garage on the first floor, driveway off of the road, walkway, patio, and basement stairs. We've been talking with Mr. Cimelli's office. They've had some comments regarding the stormwater, which I've discussed with his staff. We kind of worked some things out. I have to revise the drawings to answer his comments. The style home we're proposing, we've been to Architecture Review Board. They've been satisfied. This is a modern European-style home. A couple of the comments that the ARB wanted was this window here in the living room. We had it a little shorter. They wanted to line it up with the transom over the front door. And then these single windows were 30-inch windows. They asked us to make them a little wider and to dress it up a little.
That's been reflected there?
It wasn't in what was submitted to you, but I did contact the applicant and ask them to at least present the revised drawings. They also presented hard copies, I think submitted them a couple of days ago to
What's
us.
the scale of a 30-inch window? What's that? What's drawn? What's the?
They're 3-feet windows now. They're 36-inch windows. They were 30-inch windows. The ARB asked to make them 36 inches wide.
So that's 30 that's depicted there? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I believe these are 36. I know these are more than 36 here.
Oh, okay.
So that's the corrected version?
This is the corrected version.
And the upper windows, are those 36, or those look like they're still 30? Those are still
I'd
narrow.
have to check the file again, I'll be honest with you.
I mean,
That-
if you just look at them, they.
I
that's
think,
what I'm
I
trying to
think,
do.
that- yeah.
I don't know if I could visualize
Are
6
you
inches.
like-
These
Yeah.
have to be, we're going to change these to meet the
Yeah,
approval
okay,
from the
I'm just
ARB. They got to be
curious.
the 36, I apologize. for
The
that.
other thing that is just jumping out at me aesthetically is that the spacing on the 3 top windows looks off. I mean, obviously, the middle window looks like it's right underneath the top of the peak, but the right window looks like it's far closer to the edge than the left window is to the edge on the other side, and it just, the symmetry is very off.
Right, it's off because this piece of the residence projects forward from this plane. So the roof over the garage, this peak kind of dictates, so if you look at this area here, you see they kind of symmetrical on each side of that peak. And then this window, we tried to line up over the living room window.
It's stucco, it's real.
Yes, this is a California stucco.
Is there any texture to that? It's not,
Yes, it's going to have a nice texture to it. I have it called out as a texture finish, and it's called Bray Block is the color of it. It's like a medium gray. And then what we have at the bottom is we have a brick veneer. And what I did is a lighter brick, but then accents of darker brick, just to give it a little bit of a pop. Around the door, same thing, brick. And I mean, I have landscaping shown, and we have some brick on either side of the garage door. And then what I like to do is return it about 3 feet on either side. So you have the return there, and on this side, we have the return up to the gutter. Just to carry a little consistency around it.
And the roof is asphalt shingles?
No, these are not asphalt shingles. So these are like a kind of Spanish tile, but they're black. They're a darker color.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then the gutters will be like a darker gray, not black, but like a dark gray. The soffits and the fascias would be a dark gray to try to make everything pop. The windows would be like a medium gray, just a shade darker than the actual stucco, again, to create that contrast in color.
You don't have any samples of the building materials with you, do you? Such as the
No, I
roofing?
don't.
Yeah.
I do have one thing.
Oh, it's a tile there, you can't really see.
Yeah, I see,
Right, those are the Spanish tiles, right?
Yeah.
Those are the long
So what I have here
ones.
the first sheet is the color rendering, and then the second sheet has the materials.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yes, please. Thank you. And these are proposed one for the rest of the- These are just, Michael, these are a little frustrating because again, these are not complying with what the Architectural Review Board required, so we're getting a lot of materials that are. So this is just to illustrate the roof?
It's to illustrate, well,
The material schedule, okay.
yeah, then you have all the
elevation is
material
not
specs on
accurate, it's the
page
front
2,
page,
yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, each one's labeled 1, 2, and it'll conform to the different pieces. So you see, you have like 1A is the border, so it's a darker stucco, just again, to give a little contrast with the different colors. I have the roofing spec'd out, the AZAC trim, to help give you an idea of what materials we're proposing.
But I imagine whatever the ARB has asked will be complied with, and
100%,
whether depicted now or not.
yes.
Okay, so I'm deferring to the ARB.
have an issue with the...
Yeah, no, because the plans that I have here are the ones that the ARB reviewed. The only thing I think is that in your elevation on, let me see when I find it on the drawings here. I think you were saying those two windows are centered on that gable roof, but they're not. I mean, again, looking at it, I didn't look at the floor plans, but they're off-center even from that gable roof. It's slightly.
It's slightly offset. I said it's
But
roughly
is it
holding
going to
the
be
center
on
down.
center, or are they going to be centered, or are they going to be, is it going to be slightly off?
I can shift these to be more centered if you
Well,
guys
I
want.
think they have to be centered on the peak of the gable, right?
And so that is not equal to that. I mean, and I understand what you were saying in terms of that not being equal to that.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yeah, and he's talking about if you
Yeah.
look at it from there, but even that's not centered, because this is not the same as that.
I could adjust these to be centered.
I would think they should be centered on the peak of the gable, right?
Yeah,
Of
I think
this.
if you were to,
lower
if you were
The lower
to,
gable.
otherwise,
the lower
it
gable.
would look weird in relationship to
I mean,
the,
they're off a little bit, you can see it.
So I'll hold this one that's in a little bit more, and I will take that distance and I'll split it here as well.
Whatever you think looks best, but
so in addition to the 3 conditions of approval that the Architectural Review Board required, a 4th one will be just ensure that the windows on the front, second floor of the front elevation are centered over that gable. Okay.
sold. Okay, cool.
Okay.
You were done? We were just commenting?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's see if there's any comments from the public. We just stand by. So I make a motion to open the public hearing on application 22-40, 80 Webster Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Seeing that there's no one coming forward, I make a motion to close the public hearing on the same application, 2240, 80 Webster Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right, so, shall be ready.
So because this is new construction,
Yeah.
you'll have the two standard
Right,
conditions of
I'll
approval.
go through them.
Plus the, so actually, can I go through them quickly?
Yeah, please do.
So the first condition of approval, which is sort of a three-parter, is to ensure that the plans reflect the recommendations of the Architectural Review Board. Then another one is to ensure that the windows on the second floor of the front elevation are centered over the gable. And then we have a condition, Michael, that this applies to all new single-family home construction. Well, prior to the issuance of the building permit, the proposed stormwater management plan shall be subject to the final review and approval of the town's engineering consultant. And then also, I do want to mention to the board that the applicant did not have the landscape plan available for the Architectural Review Committee, but he did indicate to them that he had retained Anthony Zano, a landscape architect, to prepare the plan that was submitted. And so the condition is prior to the issuance of his CO, the landscape architect shall provide a signed and sealed letter to the Building and Planning Department certifying that the landscape plan has been installed in accordance with the approved plans. Any proposed changes to the landscape plan shall be reviewed by the landscape architect and approved by the Building and Planning Department prior to installation and shall be documented in a letter submitted by the landscape architect.
Great.
Okay?
So, subject to those conditions,
Can I just clarify that I don't think there were any variances that you required?
No, there was no
Okay.
variances required.
Did I use that word? Okay.
No,
thought
I
did.
just wanted to make sure. No, I didn't hear the word at all, that's why. It's so rare that we get a non-variance, right? No variances, yeah.
So then I make a motion to approve this application, 22-40, 80 Webster Road.
Yeah, subject to all of those,
The conditions.
yeah.
All in
Second.
favor? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a
very
nice
much.
evening. The next application
There you go.
is 22-42. The next application is 22-42, 883 California Road.
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Malinsky, presenting 883 California Road. We're here for a retaining wall that's over 6 feet. It's highlighted in orange on the plan at the rear and side of the property line. It ranges in height from 3 feet 6 to 8 foot 6. And we will be installing a 6-foot high fence on top of the retaining wall to enclose a pool in the backyard. And we did receive a variance for the height of the wall plus fence. Aesthetically, we're breaking up the height of the wall by having the bottom as 12-inch concrete block, and then it will step back to 10-inch concrete block.
Yeah, this, by the way, this, I think with our initial Beach Street subdivision application, somebody mentioned about water flowing down Highland Avenue and wondering what the people on the bottom of Highland Avenue would be thinking. I believe this is the one on the, at least on the south side of the intersection of California Road and
Starts to go
Highland,
up,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so is this retaining wall being put up principally or solely for privacy purposes, or is there?
So there's an existing retaining wall there currently that is starting to crumble in areas. So we're replacing that, but it is going to be higher. Because right now it's steps. Because we put this pool in, we want to have it consistent with the patio.
Yeah, and the backyard of this property, is that a maintenance building for Siwanoy? Is that what's sort of in the backyard?
So that's on the side yard,
Okay.
the opposite side yard.
Got it.
retaining wall is the highlighted in the
yellow
plan?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The retaining wall is the yellow, or?
The orange
Orange.
line.
It's the whole property.
Yeah, so it already, as she said, there's already an existing
Right.
retaining wall that's in disrepair,
Yep.
and it's at a higher elevation than the neighbors.
And the thought as well is to put the fencing in over it. That's-
Well, because
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
pool.
of course.
Right, 'cause the fences. So the variance is for what was the variance for?
No,
The height of
The
the
height.
wall plus fence, because the fence is on top of the wall, so you're allowed 10 feet, and we got it for 14.5 feet.
This is not a requirement, but rather a curiosity, because I don't see anyone here to speak against this. Has there been any discussion of this repaired retaining wall plus fence with the neighbor who'd be, or neighbors who would be affected?
So I know there was some discussion at the ARB. I wasn't at that meeting, but I believe they're okay with
Yeah,
the
so
current plan.
the neighbors directly behind the site were concerned about, my understanding, I did talk with them, they did come to the ARB, they heard the presentation. My understanding that their primary concerns were potential drainage issues, but the applicant has proposed like a trench drain along the entire length of the wall there, and also concerns about the stability of the fence that was mounted on the wall. So the applicant did provide a report by an engineer, indicating how the fence would be securely installed on the wall. And then there was another question, I think, that the neighbors felt misunderstood. They thought there was that the retaining wall extended above the property, and if that was the case, they wanted the fence to go behind the wall, but when they understood that it's flush, they were happy. And I think their biggest concern is they're getting tired of looking at this crumbling wall with the plastic on top, and they really just want to get it built at this point. That's what they expressed to me at the end of the ARB, like, can you just move it along now?
Okay, good. That's,
And if they're watching,
yeah.
hopefully I got that right.
Okay, good. Okay.
Okay, I make a motion to open the public hearing on this application, 22-42883 California Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to close the same application, 22-42883 California Road.
Yep, close the public hearing, yes.
Public hearing,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
That's it.
Thank you.
Well, we
to go.
have to,
Thank you.
we have to vote on it.
What's that? We vote, we vote. Approve, right. So I make a motion to approve application 22-42883 California Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. She's doing okay. Right, time-wise. Did you bring snacks for us?
I heard Diet Coke.
Man, hungry.
Good evening, all. Thank God I'm the last one here. Mike Finelli, I'm the architect, presenting for 54 Stratford Road. Owners can't be here, but hopefully I'll make this short and brief, and I'll answer any questions that you might have. We're proposing an addition to an existing house. I put the rendering up first so you can kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. I'm going to tuck that down here. Just quickly walk through what we're proposing. So we are looking to add 515 square feet to an existing single-family house. That number, we had to get variances for the square footage and also for the house itself. It sits inside of the setback as it exists. It's 28 feet off the street rather than 30, and it's 7+ feet, 7.5 feet to the right, to the left setback. So it already exists in the setback. So anything we did, we're increasing the level of nonconformity, so we asked for variances for that, for the positioning. The square footage of the house used to have, actually I have a drawing of it. The way it existed previously, it had a 6-foot knee wall that the roof came off of. So all of the space that was inside of that first 6-foot knee wall, anything beyond that to 7 foot, that square footage didn't count when you used to count the square footage based on the way it was built. So simply raising the roof on this house, we had to now take that square footage and actually count it. So that was part of the reason we asked for a variance for square footage. We are proposing a pool in the back of the house, and we had a much larger pool proposed and variances for a rear and side yard on the pool, but some finagling, some shrinking of the pool. I managed to get rid of one of the rear yard setback, and we asked for a variance of 1 foot, so 9 feet rather than the 10 foot that's required. We had originally asked for 6 and 6, so I was able to shrink that down. That was a quick rundown of the variances. We went to ARB where we did get approval for our house. I'm sorry, I've got drawings everywhere. And they did have a couple of comments that they wanted us to address. Some we addressed, some we agreed with, and some the owner just did not want to go for. So we basically told them that I would speak with the owners, but it wasn't technically a condition of the approval, just suggestions. Some of those suggestions were this area in here, basically the house cantilevers out a foot as it exists. So I created a colonnade under that overhang, which we're going to be stuccoing to match the facade of the house. The ARB asked me if I would be willing to take the same cedar that we're applying at the front portico and bring that across. The owner was not interested in doing that. They wanted to keep the stucco. They liked the look a lot better, so that was something that we did not agree with. They also asked us to look at, we have cedar being proposed over the windows to match the trim work at the front entrance. They asked us if we could look into a synthetic material rather than putting a traditional cedar on there. They said because of the staining and the upkeep and the maintenance on it, it would be something that the owner would have to follow through with every 4 or 5 years and restain and do. Owner was not interested in going with the synthetic material. We couldn't find anything that actually looked appropriate to cedar. So they're willing to take on the additional cost and maintenance to do that work. The one other request that they did ask us to do, which I did in fact take them up on, was they asked us to, I'll show you the rendering first, and I'm sorry I couldn't get the rendering updated in time. This area right in here was originally proposed as a stucco finish to match the rest of the house. They felt it looked very much like a porch that existed at one time that someone enclosed and put a dormer on, not the look we were going for at all. So I had suggested removing the stucco and turning that into a trimmed out panel with AZEK board to match the rest of the design of the house. And I have that on the actual architectural drawings that I submitted to you guys. So you'll see there's 4-inch trim boards that basically outline, and that looks more like a raised panel look now. And I think it actually looks a lot better and a lot more in keeping with what I was going for as far as design. Beyond that, I have materials and samples if you'd like to see, but that, in a nutshell, that's pretty much what the ARB asked us to do, and I'm hoping that the changes that I made were enough. Like I said, the owner was pretty adamant about not putting more cedar across here to finish and stain and come back and work on. The level that they're at now was sufficient. And I think that the look continues through. You know, it's not needed in my opinion. But that's where we are tonight. We're presenting that. So I'm open to suggestions. I have samples. Whatever you might need, I can show you or answer questions.
Yeah, before you show us the samples, could you put the rendering back up? That was pretty good.
Of course.
A little more, Gary? Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. So the 2 inset stucco panels that you've shown on the elevation are in there?
Yes. So those insets aren't actually stucco. There's existing brick that's painted white that goes across the bottom of the front of the house.
Got it.
So the stucco actually is going to create another level of detail that pushes forward, and the stucco will be recessed. And the idea is to have just a simple band that comes across to break the intersection of the two pieces of stucco, so that it's not one monolithic piece all the way down, and just add a little bit of character, shadow lines. Sometimes the renderings are great, but they don't always represent exactly what it's going to look like. We also, I forgot to mention, we did add a little bit of stone just at the piers. We have some piers in the back as well that we're going to clad it with some stone, just to add another level of texture and color to the front of the house, and it'll tie more into any curbing and things that are going to be going on along the bottom of the house. One thing that I do want to mention that I don't think anyone asked us about, but we spoke with the neighbor to the left of the property, and I did want to point out, so I didn't have a spot for the air conditioning compressors. Originally, the thought was to put them on the left-hand side, but because that setback is minimal, we don't have any space for the compressors there. We were discussing with the neighbor, her intentions, what she thought about us asking the board for permission to put compressors there. She was totally against it. She did not want them there. So we don't have any space on the left side. We can't put them in the front. There is nothing on the right because that's a driveway. So what we're proposing to do is place them right back in here in the back corner. So they'll be tucked away. We'll put a fence around it, and it'll be out of the way and on our property and away from the neighbors. So just something I wanted to share.
We weren't going to ask about it, but thanks for sharing.
Would you mind just focusing in on the dormer, the ASEC panel or whatever you did there? Not on the, so that doesn't illustrate what you're proposing now.
It does not, right.
So my only comment on that is that, and again, I trust the architect and I trust his clients, but the ARB, expressed the concern. They basically recommended do it all hardy plank or all stucco so that it didn't look like you enclosed a porch.
Right.
I think this is an improvement over stucco, but to me, it still kind of looks like, because it's a different material, I'm not sure it really addressed the ARB's concerns, but they're not here to address that either. So
when
you know what I'm saying? Because it's a different material, it still kind of looks to me like you've enclosed a balcony.
Yes, but they specifically, actually, I think it was Luca who specifically asked for he was one who made the suggestion, and again, a good one, because we have AZEK trim everywhere else on the house, it's not going to be yet like a eighth material that's being added and it'll jump out. And I think it's subtle enough that the shadow lines will read very similar to what I'm doing here. So it won't read as just one big monolithic
Where
block.
it did with the stucco.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can we see it on the rendering? Is that shown on the rendering?
It's not. I wasn't
Yeah,
able
didn't
to
think-
get that
Can you put it back up?
updated.
It's sort of cool.
Sure. So that would be this area in here. So I'm showing 4 panels basically that are splitting this equally.
But
straight
it's going to be
across.
vertical slats.
Vertical 4-inch slats, and then there's a 6-inch base trim that comes across. Actually, I think it's 8 inches that comes across the bottom, and there's another 4-inch. And the 4-inch is important because the trim on the rest of the house is 4-inch, so it carries that same rhythm all the way around.
Did you tell us what the material is for the headers over the windows? That matches, they're all the same?
It's the cedar?
It's cedar. It's stained cedar. Yep.
So
Actually, you reminded me, the board did ask, we proposed a cedar color. They asked to go 1 shade darker, which we did. We chose, I believe it's actually mahogany. So it's going to be more of a mahogany coloring, a little bit darker than what you're seeing there.
I like it. Hey, just one more question. Is that one like right in the middle on the top, is that the attic or is?
This guy up here?
Yeah.
It is. It's the attic.
That's why it's small. Right.
Yeah. I didn't want to draw too much attention to it. I wanted to create scale. I believe the windows on the first floor, 4.5 feet, then 4 foot, and I think that's like a 3.5 foot window. So when you look up, it just looks like the scale's getting smaller. It just looks better.
Where's the fan, on the other side?
The who, I'm sorry?
Is the attic fan on the other side or?
Actually, we don't have an attic fan up there.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Oh, it's a usable attic or?
Right now, it's actually a walkable attic, yes.
Okay. Got it. Cool. Okay. Sounds interesting. I don't have any more questions.
Nor I.
Nice job, Mr. Finelli. Let's
Thank
do
you.
Public hearing, make a motion to open the public hearing on application 22-38, 54 Stratford Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to close the public hearing on the same application, 22-38, 54 Stratford Road.
Second.
And then I'll remember this time, I make a motion to approve the
All in
application.
favor.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to approve the application, 22-38, 54 Stratford Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Make a motion to adjourn the February 23rd Planning Board meeting. Next meeting is March 23rd, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.